I'll be the
Yes,
intro
I've
person.
clicked the button. I see you think your beer combed.
Yes,
You
it
sure?
is. It is.
Cool.
Let's just give it a few seconds. It actually takes a good few seconds for it to show up on Twitch. Like for example,
I
we're
think it's
still
accept.
not yet on Twitch, at least not in my part of the world. So are we live? We're not live yet, but according to StreamYard, we are live. So I guess it's being recorded. It's going on YouTube or something like that. So hello and welcome. Welcome to Monday's edition of Bean Streaming. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Hope you had a really good Monday or a good start to the Monday. My name is Darko, and next to me is Kobus, or more commonly known as not Darko. Welcome to this. I would say it's a relatively difficult Monday because neither Kobus and I nor I had a lot of sleep. Most likely for different reasons, but it's exactly. I've been doing some talks or recording some things until late in the evening, and then woke up early in the morning to record other things because recording is my life now, I guess. So yeah, it's been interesting. But yeah, welcome to the Monday morning edition of Bean Streaming, where Kobus and I talk technology while having a coffee. And unfortunately, I'm out of coffee, so I'm gonna have to talk. Oh my god, should we cancel the show? I think it's just.
Yeah, I think we should just cancel it.
Thank you, everybody, for. So apparently we should have some coffee with us, but it's that kind of a morning where we don't even have coffee. So please bear with us. And today, we have a few plans to do. So of course, like every Monday, we're gonna go through over some new releases that came out last week. We did mention some of them on Friday, but today we're gonna look at some more. And I would like to have a specific topic for today. The topic that's close to my mind, at least, it's on the topic of testing code. Not testing infrastructure code, but testing your applications, or in general, how you can safely deliver your applications to production, because that's very important. So before we start all of that, Kobus, how's your weekend?
Busy.
Busy?
Kids screaming, and kids screaming, basically. And that also, in case you're wondering, is the reason I didn't get a lot of sleep. A 3-year-old reason, to be exact. We had a bit of a session at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. this morning. Can't remember anymore, but yeah.
Okay.
Always good.
Always good. Well, did you do just the kids this weekend, or did you do some tech? Did you play around with what's happening to your Ubuntu server?
It's actually up and running. I finished it. I didn't pimp it out as much as I wanted to, but it's back up and running.
Okay.
It's doing its thing with the camera. The most surprising thing there was that tweet that I sent out is the fact that Netstat isn't the go-to util anymore. It's now SS.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not installed by default on Ubuntu 20.04. It was still an 18.04 because that's the previous version that I ran on some other boxes. But you now have to explicitly install NetUtils to get Netstat. And but I mean SS, the flags from my understanding are the same. There are obviously some extra ones, I think, and it gives you the same output. It's just it's the new tool. So
And
I'm like, hey,
is there a reason for that? Like, I mean, is that just an Ubuntu choice? Because, like, to be honest, like I have not tried Ubuntu 2004. So
I must confess, I read it and then I forgot about it, and then I need to reread it. Yeah, it did make sense when I read it, but that was like pre-sleep deprivation. So
okay. Yeah, because I know there's some differences with some tools, like even if they're called the same. I think I mentioned it last time. Like for example, Netcat, there's the differences between the GNU and the BSD versions. They don't have the same flags at all. They're the same NC also, but they don't have the same flags, or you can't use the same flags with either of them. So I'm not sure if this is some of that kind of a reason why they're off or they're not working, but hey, what can you do? All right. So while Kobus figures out why did Ubuntu ditch Netstat for SS, what does SS stand for at all?
Socket server, I think.
Socket.
If I have to guess, I don't even know.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, let me have a look here quick.
And another utility to investigate sockets.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's what it says on the tin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting one.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was trying. I remember the reason came across, but like I said, honestly, my brain's not engaged yet today. I still need to definitely throw more coffee at it before I can become
Yeah,
coherent.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but it serves the same purpose. Can you use the same flags at all, like
Here we go.
TULPN?
Yep,
Socket
that's
stuff.
the first thing I checked. Yes, so muscle memory at least
Okay.
kicks in. It stands for socket statistics.
Socket statistics. Okay. It's a bit of an
Yes.
unfortunate name, but okay. Um, okay. Um,
No, examples. Sorry, I remember this one being the one.
it's actually not pretty new. I mean, I've seen it like through 2019 or 2017 as well. But okay. Hey, you just have to remember not to type netstat anymore. But yeah, now socket
Yeah.
statistics or SS.
Okay, wait. Here we go. So this is something that seems to be that Netstat uses the details in the files, because remember with Linux, everything is a file. So even when you open up sockets, they're files. So they use
Yeah.
look at /proc.
Okay.
And that can get a problem when the system gets big and complex, it says here,
Okay.
which is why they're using new tools leverage netlink sockets to provide the information, which are more efficient.
Okay.
So now I need to
Okay.
go read up on what's netlink.
Yeah.
Welcome to the rabbit hole! Yay!
Exactly.
It's a fun. It'll be fun. Yeah.
So okay, socket statistics is a new thing on Ubuntu or Ubuntu 2004. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of new things, what?
Quickly before we get to the new things, can someone just confirm that our audio is all right? We had a
yeah.
complaint last week that we had different audio levels and I was a bit too loud, like in real life. So I've turned down the gain on my mic a little bit. So just let us know if this is better or worse or.
How different, how off are we from each other, right? That's one thing. And it's very difficult for us to test before it starts because, unless we're going to start to stream. Because I can hear Kubus perfectly good, right? So, yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Mix to fine for me.
Awesome.
Okay, perfect. But the level is, I mean, we're relatively on equal levels when it comes to audio ish. That's important. Okay. So, speaking of new things, let's actually have a look at what came out last week, because I'm also very, very familiar with it right now, because this morning, your boy woke up at 5 a.m. to record a podcast because I made a promise to my listeners. I make a podcast every Monday before 7 a.m. So I got up at 5 a.m. this morning to record a podcast in my own language on what's new on AWS. So firing up the old voice recorder here and just reading what's new and trying to digest it for people. So there's a few other things. One interesting thing, and I was really surprised by it. It's called CloudFront Origin Shield. So Kanir doesn't understand the before 7 a.m. concept. It's a magical time where you actually get a lot of work done, but it's very difficult to reach that magical time because you fight the morning demon of you trying to sleep. And there's always, like, especially in my use case, the evening Darko is all for it. The evening Darko, like, I'm gonna get up at 4 a.m. I'm gonna be productive. Oh boy. But then the evening Darko meets the morning Darko demon, and it's like, no, you're not getting up, buddy.
I used to do that, but then I ended up having nightmares about the things that I haven't completed yet, like literally pitching up without my homework being done type scenarios and getting into trouble. So I've learned, like, just rather stay up late, finish it then, and then,
Yeah, no, I agree. It's difficult, but I did do it this morning. So this morning I found out about CloudFront Origin Shield, which is interesting name, but it is another feature part of CloudFront. And for those of you who do not know, CloudFront is our content delivery network. So it enables you to cache your content across the globe, so it will be closer to your customers or to your end users and faster for delivery. And it will also reduce the load on your origins on the thing that actually serves your content, right? So, Kobus, let me give you a hypothetical question. Your origin is serving a piece of content, and then all of a sudden that piece of content is invalidated, right?
Yes.
And you have customers from United States, South America, Africa, Europe, Japan, access your content at the same time. What happens?
Yep. Well, what we have here in Africa, which is herds storming.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, what happens is all of the edge locations, all of the caches come to your origin and request the new version of it, right?
Yeah.
And that can potentially be a problem because herd, right, or herd storm, or thundering herd, how they call it in Puppet, is like basically having a whole lot of things happen at once to your origin server, and you get these spikes of load on it, potentially disrupting service, right? So, by my understanding, Cloudfront Origin Shield is a service that basically sits between your Cloudfront and your origins. So it's another cache between the cache and the origin. So instead of your cache locations accessing a one origin place, they're gonna access one central cache. So it's basically an intermediate layer of cache that gets the new content from the origin and then serves it to the other ones. So
cache for your cache.
Exactly, it's a cache in your cache, so you can cache while you cache, right? So it's an interesting thing. I mean, looking at some of the official wording here that came out is that you can also use Lambda at edge with Origin Shield. You can have, for example, the customers using Origin Shield for live streaming, image handling, or multi-CDN workloads have reported up to 57% reduction in origin load. So yeah, those are kind of the approaches they had here to those things. So pretty cool, I would say. Is there any feature? Is there any service that came out last week, Kobus, that's of your specific interest?
Yes, there was one that came out in Cape Town, and I actually tweeted about it. But like I said, brain's not engaged yet. Backup. AWS backup, yes, came out in Cape
SageMaker
Town.
SageMaker and Backup are newly available services in Cape Town. So SageMaker wasn't available in Cape Town until recently, so until last week. So
I did not want to say anything out loud because I was thinking about that now, because I knew they were on the day that they were busy rolling it out and testing things, but I didn't know the announcement went out. So it's like one of those, I've been trying to keep an eye on it, but yeah, okay, awesome. So, yay!
Hey, let's pop the champagne. So Kobus, tell us about Backup. What do you think about Backup? Have you used it?
Backup, yes. It's actually it's a super easy way to set up backups for various different services. It doesn't have to be just RDS. So it's one of those, like, it's a nice way to ensure that you've got, because remember with normal like RDS instances where you do snapshots, that's on an instance level. And the backups, I believe, is also, you can do it on the instance level, but you can set it up to do database level backups as well, which is super useful because you can then have that file restore somewhere else, so you're not bound to the actual instance type. So just quick bit of background, there was a very interesting situation a few years ago where a customer had a RDS instance and they had snapshots, they had proper backup strategy in place and everything, and then they ran out of space. As in they hit the limit of max disk space. And then it fell over because guess what? Instances become unhappy when there's no disk space. So what that is, restore the snapshot, started getting it back up again, and immediately, boom, same thing happened. And it was something, if I remember correctly, along the lines of the snapshot was running on an ext3 file system, not ext4. And so because your
file system size,
yes, and the challenge with that was that you're restoring on an instance level, which means the operating included, including the file system and everything. So they effectively had to do quite a bit of interesting magic, I think, to be able to extract it and get it running on the ext4 file system. So that's one of the reasons why also backing up on a database level instead of on an instance level is a good idea.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean, I know when backup came out, because a lot of customers I work with in premium support is like, does AWS have a backup solution? Like, you tell us all to backup stuff, but how do we backup stuff, right? Of course, you can always snapshot things and EBS level backups, but this is cool. And it also supports RDS, right? You can actually make RDS database backups instead of snapshot backups.
And also the other benefit of this is that it's centralized. So you can go, when I log into my account, I can look and say, what are my backups at the moment? You can see, poof, everything is listed there, multiple different routines. Because remember, on an RDS instance, you can set the frequency of the backup and how many snapshots to retain. And I think that's about it. You can have one config like that, where with AWS Backup, you can have multiple different sets, like let's do a full one every Monday and then incremental ones other days, etc., like full control over it, which is awesome.
So Kobus, can you reach into your magic, can you reach into your magic availability or a magic feature hat and tell us now when Cognito will be available in AF South 1?
Yeah. Wait. I need to get my...
Where?
Sorry, I moved things on my desk because there were kids here grabbing things. Here we go.
Did you find it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You're currently looking for the secret information when all services are going to be released.
Yes.
It's like, in Back to the Future, we have this almanac where we know which services are going to be released until 2027.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's just worry. I think I found it. Let me just double check the note here. Yeah, I think. Wait. Okay, cool. So, don't know if you can hear that.
We can.
Found it. Don't worry. We got it.
All right. It's like bingo.
It's like the magic 8 ball, unfortunately.
Ooh, ask again later. Yeah.
No, sorry.
Sorry for the drawn out joke here, but we really don't know. Like,
we literally don't know. Yeah.
So we would love to have this magic information available to all of us, but we don't know. And the thing is, like, even if they told us, like, oh, we have a potential launch next week, if we would tell you, oh, next week we're having Cognito available in AF South 1, and then you prepare, and then you get your business built up, and then you're like, next week we're migrating to Cognito in AF South, and it doesn't come out, and we wasted your time. And then you're like, two bald guys lied to me. So that's kind of like we're trying to not lie to you.
But I mean, remember when AWS builds services and rolls things out, it's like we roll it out when it's ready, not according to some, we need to get it by that because there's a promotion going out or something along those lines. I know there was one specific release. I think I think you might have been on the team by that point. I don't want to even mention the person because then you'll immediately know at least what segment we're dealing with. But the release was pushed out, I think, 13 times. Because it's like every time they found, I don't know, this is just not up to scratch, a couple of edge cases, something wasn't right. It's like, nope, this is not good enough. We don't do this. So, yeah.
And that's just it's more honest towards you guys, right? If we were just be releasing something for you would imagine how many services are canned before reInvent. Like, you get ready, you're gonna launch a reInvent, and like 2 days before reInvent, nope, we can't launch, and that's it, right? And and if you prepare a talk that you have new services in your talk, and somebody comes to you like, pull that out, and you're like, okay, ripping part of your talk. That happens as well.
What I can say about reInvent, because we're busy working on some of the launches and as in the sessions around announcing the launches and discussing them a little bit, is that we will have a lot of fun next year. Dark and I will be very busy talking about a lot of new toys. That's all I can say. Yeah. There's some fun things coming.
I can say that in my presentation I have like 4 new things to talk about potentially. I'm not going to say in which session, I'm not going to say which services, nothing, but potentially. Fingers crossed that all gets released. So let's see what goes on. And to answer the question from Margela BTV, have you guys played with tried the new Elemental Link? The Elemental Link is this. Is that the box? Wait, I think it's that. Yeah, it's the hardware device.
Is it, or is it that service that basically is what Twitch runs on? It's an effective like how to stream video.
Yeah,
you just integrate it.
It's a box. It's a thing. So it is actually. Let me share my screen. It is a little thing that does a thing, and if you look at it, it's a little yellow box that basically helps you stream content. Right? It connects to AWS. It connects to Elemental Media Services. So it's basically a full-blown streaming box. Now, this doesn't work with Twitch, if I understand correctly, and it's $1,000. So it's not something you would get to stream Twitch. But if you're using Elemental services, which is like Media Live, this is just amazing. The goal of this device is to kind of take off all the complexity from streaming a video from a source to Media Live, right? Even though streaming a video to Media Live is relatively easy. I remember one of my first things as a solution architect that in this training we had was build, take a phone and stream from the phone to Media Live into multiple different formats. And it's basically just an RTMP thing. You can do that from your phone. The problem here is that, you depend on this. This kind of helps you have a central way that communicates with AWS and does all of that for you. So pretty cool. I think this. We haven't played with it, but it looks very interesting. I would love to have one. It's 1080p at 60 FPS.
Okay.
But yeah,
this is actually I definitely want one of these. I don't need it. I want it.
Of course. But yeah. So hopefully we at some point get a chance to play with toys like this. There's a lot of toys from AWS that we don't even get a chance to play with it. Like for example, I've never had unlike Cobus, who has 10 deep racers at home, I have none. So so yeah. Have you had a chance to play with the keyboard thing? The
Deep Composer.
Deep Composer?
Not really, but you don't actually need a special keyboard for it. It's just any MIDI compliant. But I mean, no, it's just like too many toys. There's like not enough time in the day to play with all of them.
That's true. That's
but I want
true.
to. Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mixer. Hi, welcome back to the stream. Hey, we're Gio. We have DeAndre. Hey. All.
Yeah.
Mixer. The topic of the stream is the main topic. Currently, we're just discussing new things and some random tech. The main topic is going to be software testing software or testing your code. No, actually, what would be the proper way to form this? The theme is not testing software, is safely deploying your code in production. Let's call it that way. And I want to talk about how AWS does it as well. And backstory, I did a talk yesterday, or actually I recorded a talk yesterday on this same topic. So I'm very much fresh with it, and I want to abuse this knowledge now. So
shall we test your knowledge?
Oh, snap! Oh, God. Okay, so, Cobus, when it comes to testing software, what's the first thing you think about?
Well, how to bypass them so I can deploy.
Okay. Okay, let's actually talk about that. Test-driven development. Do you know what TDD? So I was actually, I've never been a developer, right? So backstory, I've been operations, never been a proper developer, but test-driven development is a very interesting concept to me, not just in the form of development, but in a lot of things. So would you know how to explain how test-driven development works?
Yes. So in a nutshell, what you do is you go about defining what it is that you want your code to do, like an API call or do something. And then instead of going like, right, let's start coding, you go like, no, hold on. You write the test first. So you write literally an empty method that, let's say, returns of the data type that you expect the method to return. Then you start building out tests that says, in this scenario, needs to do this, and this, and have all of those tests fail. And then what you do is you go back to your code and start coding to actually and start fixing things so that the tests start passing one by one.
Exactly. So basically, the way I read it, so there's this great book by Mr. Kent something. I forgot his name.
Kent Beck?
Yes, he's the father of test-driven development, right? He explained like this, is that you write a test, and then what you do is you're trying to make your code pass the test. That's it, right? So this, number one, keeps you safe, right? Number two, makes you write very simple code, because you're not writing anything else just to pass the test, right? So you write this test, that's what you want to do, and then you're trying to make your code pass the test, right? So that's kind of a thing, yeah. Okay.
And then you hope you don't break things along the way. But I mean, it's also one of the nice thing about test-driven development is like it also what Darko touched on. I was like, when you start thinking about it that way, and writing the test up front. You get more clarity on what is this method actually trying to accomplish. Because often what happens is it's very convenient just to shove like a whole crap load of things into a single method. I've been guilty of this like many years ago. Like literally, the method is called something like get person details, and then in there's actually an update to the database, and you go like, what the hell? Because it was convenience at that point, and it worked. So yeah.
So let me just share the book by this person. So I mean, test-driven development is very important, especially when you want to do. So it's very important for developers, but it's also very important for people who are not developers to understand the concepts behind it, right? Why is test-driven development important, right? And how do you approach it? How do you work with it? I've just shared a massive link here. It's from Amazon Germany, but you can check it out whatever the closest Amazon or bookstore or location is to you. But it's by Ken Beck. It's really the book on test-driven development. And test-driven development is the thing that enables your pipeline, well, not just your pipeline, but enables your workflow to easily and quickly test your code. Because this is where we test for functionality, right? This is where we test for specific things. Is my code doing something? One of the simplest examples, if you ever played with AWS CodeStar and you launch your simple serverless application, it has a test in it. Like, for example, a Hello World Python application. The test in that application is like, I expect this to say Hello World. That's it, right? Looking at the test looks more complicated than the actual piece of code, but it's well worth it. It's well worth it, especially in the long run.
Yeah, it's saying complicated test. It just reminds me, I at one point built a test harness for a message-driven application, so event-driven, but that used RabbitMQ as the message bus. And now you start getting this, like, how do you actually go about testing it? And the solution was pretty simple. Is as part of the test, you spun up a RabbitMQ instance, so message could go into the queue. But then what you did is on the consumer side, you limit it to a single thread, and then you could create your test hooks in that method to be able to then interact with as the code obviously was executing and processing the message. You could then validate as it was doing that, because the problem is that if you and that allowed you to also test the order, because as they go in, immediately get grabbed on the other side and then get processed, because otherwise you got out of order execution and things happening, and you couldn't actually run tests properly on the system, which was a little bit more than just unit testing, but it was quite a lot of fun.
Yeah. But I think it's very, very important to do so. And somebody made the comment here. So DeAndre basically made a comment that having tests actually helps you focus on function instead of nice to haves, right? Because we tend to add fluff to our code, and you should not add fluff to your code unless you really need it, because you are making it. You're basically setting a test is like hey, this is a task. This is what I want to achieve, and then you achieve it, right? I like that. I like that approach in a lot of things, right? So if I can apply the test-driven development approach to a lot of real life things, that would be just great, right? All right. Let me see.
That's an interesting one. So I want to touch on this one, which is the most advocates for TDD. So yes, doing pure TDD where you do it with every single piece of code is sometimes, very time consuming and not always as practical. It's the same with anybody that bangs the drum on anything too hard, saying you must do this and this is the religion and thou shalt not do something else. Is kind of like, take that information, apply it to your situation, make sure it makes sense, because sometimes there are things that it doesn't make sense to put tests in place for them for whatever reason.
This is also brings us to a valid question: how much testing is enough? How
100%.
much should you? Exactly.
So, easy number. We all know we want 100% coverage. Every single code path.
So this is where the question, like, how much testing is required, and it's very difficult to answer, because in my presentation I gave the biggest non-answer out there. Like, it depends, right? It really depends on what you are trying to do, because if you have a piece of code that's very critical to your users, that if it goes bad, it breaks stuff. It breaks experience. It breaks functionality. Of course, you're going to test all the parts of it, right? But if you have a thing that makes a thing yellow, right, or just a bit curved corners or whatever, maybe you don't need to spend so much time on writing and developing tests for that specific thing. So this is how they say, it's a judgment call on you to say, and I would agree here with Dave that if there's somebody saying you need to 100% code coverage have on testing, avoid that person, please.
Well,
because
so yeah, it's the kicker is it's sometimes physically not possible.
exactly.
As in, a great example of this is that I was working on a payment processing system at one point in my career, and it's a pipeline. So there are some pre-processors, then there's the payment that happens, and then there are some post-processors.
Correct.
Now, what would happen is that each individual one of these would have a set of tests, and as with any good thing, when any input parameters come in, you validate them. And one of the checks is, can this be null or not? And if it is null, do something, which is obviously a line of code that can execute. Now, for that single unit, you could write some tests that would obviously simulate that. The challenge is that that specific field could never be null because otherwise the payment couldn't be processed. So you had the null check in the pre-processor as well as the post-processor, which means by the time you hit post-processor, that will never, ever, ever happen in any kind of integration test. It's physically not possible to get, which means you cannot hit 100%. It's not possible. And there were still some people saying, no, but can't we do something to, work around it to test if it works? I'm like, it's a null check. If null, it does this.
But there's also like the point. So when we combine integration tests and unit testing, they do the different things. I mean, unit tests check functionality, but unit tests also check for edge cases, because on unit test, you make mock scenarios, you make mock dependencies. You can invent any situation you want, which most likely won't happen on an actual system, but you can do that. You can check
have you met users?
Okay. My favorite joke is the QA engineer walks into a bar. Orders a beer, orders AA beers, orders 057389 beers.
Yes. the funniest stuff actually I had is where there was a bug in a system where the person, when the bug was finally fixed, the request immediately came in and very high priority that please revert and leave the bug as is because we are used to it. We know how to work around it. We can't go and retrain 50 people. Yeah.
My God, no.
Yep. So, it's happened.
Yeah. Don't attempt to test for everything, right? Don't attempt to find every little bitty detail of all of that thing. It's fine if some things are not tested. Just make sure to have enough coverage depending on the criticality of your code, right? And also the capabilities of testing, right? If there are some things that cannot be tested in unit testing, leave them for later on, right? Because there's also the next part, which is integration testing. But before we go into integration testing, this thing came to me during my creation of my talk is like, what is the first safety valve in your pipeline?
I know. Well, it depends on the language. So my experience is typically with compiled languages, which should be a hint, is can it compile?
Okay, so that's before the pipeline. And that's fair. Like your text editor is your first test. Like this is where you try to compile your code, or even a linter or something will just scream at you that this doesn't work, right? Yeah. But once the code leaves the safety of your text editor, of your workstation, and sets off into the wonderful adventure land of CI/CD, the first test or the first safety valve is a pull request. I mean, you get somebody to look at your code. Now, yeah. And now here's the thing: at Amazon, of course, we need at least 2 people to look at your code in a service. So there's a rule that 2 people must approve your pull request to the main branch. But also, those people don't just look at your code and say, like, yeah, I guess that's some Java, right? They also have a checklist. They have to do like, does this code have a test? And why not? And they look at those things like, are you actually testing the proper part of this code? And then they let it go. So it's also very important that they kind of catch, like, because you can always ship a code without a test. It's gonna work, right? Yeah. So
it's gonna run. I wouldn't say it's gonna work.
Okay, it's gonna run, but
very subtle difference.
Yeah. So so I've had my own fair situations where I was doing some test-driven development way back when, and I've shipped code without a test. And
naughty.
Because like I'm like, Yeah, it's kind of work. It didn't work, but so yeah, it's very
Well,
important to do
this
those things.
this actually brings up that joke. It's probably a couple of years old. I can't remember who said it first, but it's like most people don't realize that everybody actually has got testers as well as a testing environment. Um, some people are just lucky that it isn't their users and it isn't their production one.
Exactly. Ooh,
Yeah.
because you don't want your users to be your test environment. I
No, no,
mean,
no, no, no. Well,
not
your
in that sense.
testers.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
in that sense, right? You want your
Yeah.
users to tell you if this is good or bad, in a sense that this is what they want and this is what they don't want. But you shouldn't have your users submit bug reports to you. Well, at least not
No, they
often,
can.
right?
It's useful,
They
but I
can.
mean,
It's
yeah,
useful, but
not as the primary line. Yeah.
exactly.
It's like,
Hopefully, you catch
yeah.
all the bugs. So I think it would work this way: you catch 90% of the bugs in your text editor, right? Syntax checkers, compile, perfect. Next 8% unit tests. And then the rest is integration tests, and like I think less than a percent you should capture from your users, right? Those not might be the good percentages. This is something I came off the top of my head, but it should be in such a way, I would say.
But I mean, it's also the closer you get to like full system testing, like integration testing, the harder it actually is to do those testing. Because I mean, the amount of setup and config and assumptions you make about what the data and shape is, and previous steps that have been run, and think about distributed systems, that just becomes incredibly difficult. Like getting everything up and running is like, yeah.
I need to share one thing with you, with all of you. I've actually used to prepare my talk. I've used the, and I am very happy. I've used the best thing out there for learning stuff. It's the AWS Builders Library. So
Oh yes, yeah.
I'm amazed by the quality of content there. So if you have not checked the Amazon Builders Library, oh my God, go. There's not a lot of content there. There's a few articles, but the quality of articles there is just, oh my God, so good.
No, it is like it's insanely.
Yeah. So let me add the, actually, let me share the screen. This, not that one, this one. Oh, bam. So this is a document written by the lovely Claire Liguori, or Liguori. I'm sorry, Claire. I pronounce bad names, especially Italian bad names. So this is the
Oh, no, all you do is you just go like clear, like glory. If you wave
Glory,
your
yeah.
hands, then
if Alex is
actually
looking at
no,
this,
yeah.
he's gonna scream at us. He's gonna scream at us. But I want to talk about how Amazon does it. And so we talked about the build phase. We talked about the unit testing here. That's fine, right? But when we talk about how Amazon does this thing in integration tests, this is how Amazon and this is actually how we do it. And I've committed code to AWS services, and basically this is how it looks. There's 4 distinct testing environments on an AWS pre-production service, right? There's the alpha, beta, gamma 1 box, and gamma. Alpha and beta are very similar. The only thing that alpha is just purely functional tests again. But compared to the build phase, this is actually deployed, right? So it's actually deployed somewhere. So you run tests on a deployed system. Beta is basically the same thing. The only thing, the difference between alpha is you run integration tests. This is where you actually run tests with actual APIs existing out there, not mock APIs like on unit testing. And Gamma, both one box and the proper one are very similar. The only thing is that Gamma one box is just a single server. And there's differences why you should test on a single server versus why you should test on multiple servers, because having stuff on multiple servers allows you to do some load testing. While on a single server, you should not do load testing because you're not going to do stuff on a single server. There's also a lot of other discussions why you should test it on a single server first, because of there's some, I read about it. It's consistency of I don't know too much about it to talk about it right now, but this is how it all looks. I mean, it has to go through all of these tests before it actually goes to production. Or when I say goes, it gets triggered to be deployed to production with all the canary tests and all the stuff out there, and it can easily roll back if it's broken. So yeah, this is how it looks on Amazon, and this is how, in an ideal scenario, this would look, right? SonarQube and other static code analysis tools are also useful. I have not used SonarQube.
I have. Well, like it's useful. So as you check in your code, it actually does static code analysis on it as well. Like things, for example, can you run things in parallel, or are there better language keywords and what do you call them? Not directives, functions. Basically, the difference between for I equals versus for each. Those kind of things, like, and sometimes like type safety type things, and that you can pick up with some of the type language, like this is not a thread safe implementation. A lot of things like that. Yeah.
Okay. I never used it before, but that's very cool. That's very cool. Yeah. So regarding peer reviews and pull requests, exactly. Yeah. So linting and formatting, and this is an important thing because every developer is different. I like my tabs. I like my spaces instead of tabs, and I like two spaces instead of four, and we all need to follow a standard. I mean, you can't, and this is why linters exist. Do whatever you want on your workstation, fine. Commit the code and let the linter do its job, right? Or arrange your code properly. So because we want to have a similar code base.
Yeah, I've had these fights before where there was like one or two like extremely strong-willed developers like saying like, no, the entire company's code base is wrong. We will now start committing this, and then they forcibly commit the code in a different format. And basically the way around that is on the repo level, you can actually build in Git hooks, and it'll run the formatter just before committing and actually accepting PRs and things like that. And if that person really, really feels strongly about it, what you can do is show them that Git also has the capability when you check out a repo or you pull the latest version, it can actually run hooks as well. So they can define their own formatter to whatever they want. It formats it into their special version that they can use while they're doing local development, and then as soon as they push it in, it gets formatted into the other one. But do it on a company level. And I feel strongly enough about this that this in my build pipelines would be an error, not a warning. If you do not format your code correctly, you will not commit or push this code. Sorry, cheers. It's
and especially when you get into like discussions with developers, developers are very strongly opinionated, aren't you? Right? And
no, we're not.
and that's okay. That's fine. That's great. But sometimes you have to. I can imagine a code base with 100 developers. Well, oh god, that would be horrible. But 10 developers even with different styles, especially on languages which kind of give you the free reign to write however you want, like things with brackets and like I think like Ruby or even JavaScript. Like you can write JavaScript in any way you want. JavaScript doesn't care. So those kind of things. Of course, when you use languages like Python and PEP, Python has PEP 8, right? Its own syntax or how is it called? Is it just for syntax? Not anything. It's style guide, the PEP 8 style guide.
Style guide, yeah.
So this is what you follow, and hopefully you follow. But it doesn't break.
And also, it's just the reason this is important is firstly that think about a printed book with normal English words in it that you're already sometimes struggling to understand the content. Now, instead of like being used to it being normal square justified, it's indented differently, or it starts halfway across the page, or 2 words and then 5 words and then 3 words, and those is like literally it taxes your brain to just read the words before you even understand the words. Similar code bases. Now, imagine you don't stick with a international / global standard. Every single time you get new developers on board, they take time to get used to this. They're wasting time. It's just a note. Look what each language nowadays has got an example of how to do it. Just follow that, and unless you've got a very good reason, just stick to it. I mean, it's
And if you're if you're the first person to start this code base, congratulations, you get to pick how it looks. But if you just came into it, okay.
With great power, just remember that one. Cram's great Git history rewrite.
Git history.
I've done that as well. Rewritten an entire Git repo just because, people.
My God, no. So, but it is still very important to make your code base readable because at the end of the day, it's like your underwear. You want to make sure people can look at it. So it's not too bad.
That, I don't know what you do in Serbia, but that's not how we handle underwear here, especially not me. I don't want people looking at my underwear.
Sometimes Cobus, it's mandatory, right?
Okay, fine. It's a Superman one. I confess.
Exactly. So you want to make sure that your code looks decent and it's readable by other people. So when somebody else comes in and looks at your code or starts contributing, many times the reason why I don't open source my repository is because my code looks horrible. I'm just ashamed of it. I don't want that to be seen by people. So yeah.
But so here's an interesting one. Another reason why it's super important is history. Because if I compare my code right now to code 6 months ago, and because it wasn't a bad format, someone came along and reformatted it to the new standard. If I do compare between those 2 points in times, it looks like everything changed. I can't actually see what was the real thing that changed instead of all this noise.
That's a very important thing. Refactoring code or just reformatting your code, introduce this Git change, which is just huge, but it's nothing, and you should avoid that. This gives you a clear look into what actually happened.
But I mean, that's why I rewrote the history once. It's like, because the formatting was so bad, you could not compare anything. So I'm like, screw this. Every checkout, it was a very interesting thing to actually get right. It's like, it took every commit one by one and took it and then ran the linter over it and formatted it and then committed it and then took the next bit and applied it like that as patches and things. Yeah, it was quite interesting. It obviously made a couple of mistakes here and there, but still, it's overall, you could actually see what happened in the past, which is more important than, some other things.
No, man. Yeah. So just kind of back to this entire thing here. One thing that you have to understand that during this phase, this thing is constantly emitting telemetry. It's constantly emitting information back. This is how I look like. This is what's happening. This is my health. This is my metrics. Well, not on all parts you don't have metrics, but like when you actually do some proper things, you get metrics. You get those things pushed out. And you're looking at how those things are reacting. And is that going to be more, are we going to introduce more latency? Are we going to, I don't know, do we get more failure rates on this one or not? And this is where you should catch most of those things. Right? And then the final test. Test.
Dun, dun, dun. It's the final test.
Yeah, the final test is the... wait. Before we go to the final test, I need to share something. I was really proud of this.
Wait. I thought the final test is, does it compile on my machine? Cheers, go.
Well, yeah. I don't have it. I'm not going to share it. It's sometimes later. So the final test is actually the deployment to production. And if you have the proper tools in place and the proper setup, your deploy to production should be also the thing that actually tests your code. Hopefully, it doesn't roll back, but it has to have the ability to roll back. It has to have the ability to detect issues in production as much as possible. Now, this is where the entire art of production deployments comes into play. What do you test? There's no book that says this is what you test. There's no
easy. Test what's important.
Exactly. Yeah. There we go. Hey, the biggest answer. So this is where you introduce something like canary and blue-green deployments. Cobus, will you tell us what blue-green deployments are?
Yes. So I have got a version of my code running over here. I've painted it blue because that's the blue version. Then I bring up a second version, which is the green version. Everything that I need to be able to run the code, same quantities, everything, but it doesn't accept any traffic. Okay. And then what happens is that I go like, okay, everything is going to blue. Now I'm flipping it over. Now everything is going to green. Well, it's the other way around. Sorry, it was green first and then blue. But you get the idea.
So version code here, version 1 code here, version 2 code here. Deploy the exact same infrastructure for version 2. Do some testing. You send some test traffic. Just make sure it works. If your test traffic goes through, reroute the production traffic to it. Yeah. And bam, you have the new code in production. Number one, it's much faster, right? Number two, there's no inconsistencies, or there is no situations where you have different versions of code running in production, right?
We need to get back to that point, but let's continue. Yes, for the sake of this discussion, yes, that's a very, very interesting point.
And also gives you the ability to actually roll back really, really fast if there is an issue, because you still have the old environment running or actually existing. And then if something goes bad into production and you find it, like sometimes you find production issues when it's actual production, when you get proper customer load, because it's very difficult to emulate customer load. You can to an extent, but you can't invent what customers can do, right? And like you can go through all of your integration tests, through all of your pre-productions and whatnot, and then all of a sudden a customer, requests XYZ beers, and then a chain of events happens that just breaks things. So this is why it's important to even test in production to an extent. Then if an issue happens, you just magically have the ability to roll back because an existing environment already exists, or the old environment already exists.
So I'm just making notes of a couple of things we have to discuss.
Okay, let's discuss
three different things. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one is that statement that you made. So having code go to two different versions. So as you can imagine, you're making code changes when that new version is deployed. Version 1 does one thing, version 2 does something else. Now, the fun part here is that everybody actually has a situation, because remember, as you're busy deploying, some requests were still going through on version 1, version 2.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, whether you know it or not, you deal with the situation. So you always have to think about, how am I changing my code? What will happen if I get two of these requests coming in through the two different code paths? Yeah. Because, for example, switching off the site and not having any traffic isn't always an option. There are ways, obviously, to do that, but yeah, that's not. You have to think about this and realize what's going to happen. It's the same discussion around everybody needs to deal with termination signals for their application. They just don't know about it, because at some point you're going to have your app busy still processing a request. When the app just dies, what happens? Was that transaction rolled back? Was it rolled forward? Partially committed? What happens? Or lost, which is
also this is where I learned about the term backwards compatibility. And no, it's not what you're thinking about. It's not like, oh, my software supports old versions. Backwards compatibility is that, are you introducing a new piece of software that's completely changing all the things? Like introducing a new version of your code that all of a sudden doesn't deal with CSV files, but deals with JSON files, and starts creating JSON files. And then you decide, okay, I broke, and then you roll back and you lose. Like the old version doesn't know what to do with JSON files. So it is very important that if that has to happen, I think that you have to have a specific set in play to kind of mitigate those situations, or have a in-between version that kind of does both for a while or something. But backwards compatibility in software deployment is very important. And I didn't know about that until not so long ago. Because like I would think backwards compatibility, it just works, all the things. But it is quite problematic, because we usually think of software deployments, especially in test-driven development, is like are small little things, right? I'm just gonna make a little change here and just put it, and then I can roll back. But sometimes you have to make a big change, because some changes are naturally big. It's very difficult to make an incremental change to JSON. You kind of just like, I'll just do bit in JSON and everything else is CSV. This is very important to understand. Like if you're making a change that is not backwards compatible, you better be sure that it works, or have an ability to avoid a one-way door, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's take a moment and explain one-way door versus two-way door. Yep. It's a thing we deal with on a daily basis here at AWS as well as at Amazon. So what we do is we actively work to make most decisions two-way doors instead of one-way doors. The reason is one-way doors, you walk through it and you can never go back. It's like, for example, building the Cape Town region. That is a one-way door. It's not like we can tomorrow decide, you know what, this is a mistake. Let's, just back up and take it somewhere else. Put it on the truck. There we go. No, it's a one-way decision where that region is now open and it's operating. Where other decisions like two-way doors, can be, well, we want to stream on Mondays and Fridays. Well, we did it for a while. We learned. We figured out, that doesn't work well. We'd rather want to stream on Tuesday mornings early at 5 a.m. because that's when Dark is awake. Then we can change it. So you can change things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also you want to try to avoid one-way decisions even in software deployments, or actually one-way doors. Now you can do it all the time, like with the Cape Town region. Sometimes to move forward, you really need to stick your neck through a one-way door, and then you just have to try to be sure enough that doesn't break your back, right? So this goes for backwards compatibility. If you're making a change that will break backwards compatibility, there are some things you can introduce. There are some things you can try to kind of leverage that potentially will help you roll back if needed. Or you can just make sure that your code is just the best code out there, that it just works, which never does.
Or figure out a way to run both versions indefinitely side by side and keep an eye on the old version with metrics to make sure that people will slowly stop calling it. And then at some point you can say, well, finally no one is calling this, and this is a very, very rare, very happy case scenario. Then you can shut it down. But often you can't make people change. They're still using the code, it works. Why would they change?
Well, last time we spoke, I told you about this thing that a problem people ignored for like 15 years in this government institution I used to work at. We had this server that would serve, like it would contain all the information on the land plots in my hometown, where you were like, if you buy a piece of land, you have this numbered plot and you own it. And this server would contain all of those things. And this server was like a Unix system, a Unisys 4000 from 1985, running Oracle 4 or 5, something ancient. Like I told you, the backup was basically printing into paper. And people just ignored that. Like they were aware that they need to migrate that in 1992. But because of the situations, they're like, just let's just ignore it. People will slowly stop using it. I'm not sure how it is right now, but I 10 years ago when I worked there, people were still actively using it. You would have to query like a big old Unix system to get like an information who owns a plot of land. So don't rely on just ignoring or running parallel systems forever. Make strategies for, how is it called?
It's migrating.
Migrating. It's not an exit strategy, right? Or depreciation strategy. Like how are you going to deprecate a service that is not backwards compatible, or because something came out that breaks backwards compatibility? How are you going to retire that service that was the problem in the first place? So that is also important. Oh boy, we strayed from software testing to.
No, but this is still relatively interesting for testing, because also the question comes up like, how do you actually test that?
Yeah.
And that's sometimes where you have to actually build your own mock system to be able to test certain portions of the system. But that's always dangerous, because are you sure you got all the behavior right? Because it's you might miss things. I mean, I know there are people that are building test harnesses to mock out the entire AWS API layer, as in. It's one of those, you hope it's right, and you also hope it's wrong when it's supposed to be wrong. Like, because we as software devs also make mistakes. Some of our services might have a mistake or a bug now that we don't know about yet. So,
Jude wants to hear more Serbian land registry stories in the future. The only thing I remember before I left is that they actually hired a company to migrate the data, and the migration of the data was like manual. It was just like there was no tool to migrate the data to a new version of a database. It was just like copy data. So but there will be stories for sure.
I mean, it's I think that's one nice thing, like having been in the industry this long, there are some very, very interesting stories always about people that did things at some point and some it's like, wow. So
I know, I mean, I'm relatively young in this industry, so I've kind of missed the old part of a lot, and I wish I had been part of the. Kubis, you started work almost at the same time I did, so I'm not saying you're older. When was your first IT job?
Full-time or?
Full-time.
Full-time was 2005, 4.
Mine was 2007, 5. So there you go. So it was not so different. But like I missed the 90s, and I missed that part of the world, that part of being I'm calling it the internetless IT, right? Where you had to figure things from books.
Very, very easy way to test. Is a terminator on a network important or not to you?
Not anymore, but it used to be.
Okay.
What's a ring topology and what's a star topology?
And then the cards came out with terminators on the card, and that was like.
I know we had a network where we used BNC, a 10 megabit BNC connection. I believe it was a ring network, and one computer went offline and just died.
Oh yeah.
My God. Yeah.
So this is actually a fun question. Algebra 97. During a job interview, do you take questions about algorithms and data structures? Right. Is this a must? For software, or what we call an SDE, software development engineer, definitely yes.
Yes.
And the reason for that is we often get people that give us grief saying, like, why are you asking all these theoretical questions about data structures and algorithms and a big O notation in terms of compute and memory intensive use of it? And the answer for that is because you will use this on a daily basis.
You will.
Most algorithms and things, when you integrate with our level of or size of systems, will need to span millions of nodes. You need to know how's this going to perform. What's the memory aspect? Is this the best data structure for it? Are there better algorithms to actually do it? So that's why we test it. It's like we don't do questions like why is a manhole cover round, like, or how many elephants can you fit in an airplane? Because those give us zero value. It's like Amazon is a data-driven company. We want to know about data, so we want things that are useful and you'll be using on a day-to-day basis, which is why we have that. And Docker just brought a toy.
I brought a book. So for all the people who like programming and infrastructure, and this is the book by Mr. Brendan Gregg. For the uninformed, Brendan Gregg is the principal engineer at Netflix. Like he's the person. If you want to read about how to make systems performant, Linux, like it's really low level here. But he has a really nice thing here where he explains the scale. I'm trying to, if I'm just blasting to this, if I can potentially find this, the little table.
Reading it like your data.
Yeah. But let me try to because if not, I have a slide deck that has that thing. Actually, you know what? I have a slide deck.
Let's pull that up. But I mean, while you're pulling that up, I do see that we are on the hour. We just went past. So for those that have joined us recently, welcome to Bean Streaming, where Doc and myself talk about various different topics, all tech and AWS related, yeah, we hope to make it not just educational, but also slightly entertaining and all that.
Yeah.
And also just a quick shout out and call out for those, because I can see that most of you are joining us on the official AWS Twitch channel. You can see our details down here somewhere for Twitch as well as for YouTube. Give us a follow and a subscribe there. You know the difference on Twitch is a follow, not a subscribe, because subscribe is money. So
yeah, exactly. Follow, don't subscribe, because subscribe is money. So don't.
Yeah. The reason for that is that we are entering. We are already in the pre-invent stage, as it's known. We are about to enter re-invent time, which means that we can't stream on the official AWS channel anymore. But we definitely want to continue streaming. So you can catch us on our own channels. We stream to both of them at the same time, and also do our own streams every now and again. And by us, I mean Darko does. I haven't had time yet.
So let me actually find this thing. This is from one of my presentation called Taking Serverless to the Next Level.
I can see your special notes there, but I can't read them.
Oh, they're in Serbian. Okay, yeah. It's because this is the presentation I did in Serbian. So yes, it was a community day we had in Bosnia. So yeah, Burek, Burek, exactly. Algebra 97. Do you eat Burek with cheese? I'm just asking where he's from because that's a big question. That's how you determine where somebody is from. But this is a really important thing. This is why people at scale such as AWS ask you about big O notation, because this is what Brendan Gregg explained here. Like if you take one CPU cycle, which is 0.3 nanoseconds in real life, right, and you upscale it to a single second, how big of a knock-on effect is to all the things? Like, accessing memory from 120 milliseconds, nanoseconds actually, goes to 6 minutes, right? I/O from an SSD goes from 50 to 150 microseconds to 2 to 6 days, right? And if you go to like a reboot which lasts 5 minutes, scaled up would last 32 millennia. So this is why it's important to understand that big O notation and algorithms and those things are very important if you're building scalable cross-world systems. Yeah. Algebra is from Macedonia. Okay. We have There's Algebra. I made a little Twitter bot long ago that uses recognition to detect if there's a picture, if there's a burek on a picture, and I trained it with all different kinds of bureks. And I went to Bosnia, and I've showed them that, and they saw my bot say that burek with cheese is called burek. and they were angry with me. But yeah, they wanted to deport me.
Of course.
So for the uninformed, there's this pastry called burek. It's a thing that's filled with either cheese or meat. It's like a Turkish pastry we have in the Balkans, and in Bosnia, the only thing that you can call a burek is if it's filled with meat. But in the rest of the Balkans, we call burek all the things, right? It's the same thing, burek. Yeah. So it's a Turkish thing. Yeah, burek called. Okay. Kurosaki asks, how much scale does that represent? So the scale you see here, the latency is the real life latency of a CPU, right? One CPU cycle is 0.3 nanoseconds. But if you would scale those things to 1 second, that's how it all goes through. Now, this is just to illustrate how it's very important to understand latency. It's very important to understand scale. And this book, which is called, Systems Performance, but let me actually paste a link because I would always love to, advertise books by Brendan Gregg because they're just so great. Paste it in. So if you want to have a look at from Amazon DE, it is a chunky book. It's like, how much pages is it? 700 pages. So
do some bicep curls.
Yeah, this will either teach you how to optimize systems or it will prevent a burglar from stealing your TV. So one of the two. But it is very deep. Like, so it talks about context switching and flags and like tracing of like, it's like you need to hear a talk from Brendan Gregg. Like he does.
Oh yeah,
really good
no,
things.
it's like just quickly, Doc. I think I mentioned the encryption with the DNS entry a while back once. Does that ring a bell for you or not?
No.
For a physical machine. So, a friend of mine implemented this very, very interesting scheme. LVM boot partition that's encrypted, and the decryption key is inside a text record on his internal network, which means if the computer and the server is inside his own network, it can boot because it can get that record, and if it's not, it can't get it. And it's one of those, like, it's a nice safety mechanism for servers to make sure that if somebody steals it, they physically can't do anything with it.
That's so amazing. I love those ingenious. Like, it's very simple. It's like super simple. It's doesn't require a lot of investment, but it's so ingenious. It's like next level thinking. Like, that person is living in 3020, right? So amazing.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't have anything good to say about the plague. I'm sorry. Don't want to spoil the fun, though.
But I did have a friend who used to work for a multinational agency, like a non-profit thing, and they had a lot of very sensitive data. And one of the things they had in their data centers, because they ran their own data centers, they had degaussing doors. So if you would attempt to take a hard disk outside of the door, it would just die, because you would take it through a strong magnetic field, which will demagnetize or just bust up your disk, unless you have a specific thing, like a Faraday cage or something. But yeah, that was a safety mechanism.
That does sound healthy, though.
You don't have to enter the data center too much.
Yeah.
Oh, I've spent a month in a server room, working from a server room. So I used to work in Malta. So I used to live for 2 years on the lovely island of Malta, which is in the Mediterranean. It's a really nice yellow rock in the sea. It's very hot. It's very dry.
Got a fun airport, I remember.
Yeah, a very small airport. But it is just charming, right? The problem with Malta is it gets hot, right? And I'm a chunky person. I don't like the heat, and I could tolerate it because everything was under AC. Until our office lost its AC for a month. Just it died. Like, the big central AC just wouldn't work to our office. We couldn't get it fixed for a long time. So then there was a period of month where Darko, myself, would go to the server room and just work from there. I would just close myself, and I would go completely numb to the audio, like to the sound, to the loudness of servers. It was really nice and cold. It was like 17 degrees Celsius inside.
Oh yeah.
I would have my standing, not even a standing desk. I would have one of those trays that you pull out from the rack and just put my laptop there and just work. So I spent there some time there. It was worth it.
It's actually surprising how much heat a single server can put out. Because I mean, I know my desktop here that I have, it makes the room warm enough in winter that I don't need a heat here, which is nice between that and the UPS.
Yeah.
So
totally. Like when I do streaming or when I do video encoding, my room just jumps up by a couple of Celsius.
Oh yeah,
it's just by that because of the heat from my desktop. Even this little small rack I have here that has an Intel NUC and a few NAS units, it gets hot. It's like 35 degrees inside of it, while in my room it's like 22. So
yeah. I still want to get a proper network case at some point and start filling it with things, because that'll make me happy. Not that I'll know what to do with the things, but well, two things. I definitely want to get a Dream Machine at some point. Okay. It's like it offers me no extra like specific value at the moment in terms of what I've got, but I want one. It's just like,
but
I need one. I don't want one.
It warms your heart. So
yeah, hardware toys.
By the way, audience, if anybody has like a good software development or testing story or a horror story, let us know. Feel free to share it in the chat. We would like to comment on it, because I did share my story from the Oracle server from a government institution, and Kobus did share his friend's DNS interesting thing. So if you have something to share, we would like to hear about it.
Yeah, please share. Yeah. Sorry, go.
No. Also, feel free to let us know where you're from. What do you do? Because we know a few of the folks here that come often, but do let us know where you're from, because there's some silent people as well. Let us know what you do, and we will always like to see who we're talking to and who's listening to us as well, because we have like 50-ish people on the stream. So yeah, feel free to share.
And so no, I think my worst like code testing experience was I worked with a person at one point which was even worse than Darko. He got up, he started work at 5 a.m. and then left the office promptly at 3. And normally at 5 minutes to 3, he would push his code and then pack his bag and leave. And he didn't even run tests locally. And a couple of times he didn't even run, like, kind of does a compile locally or not. Which is, yeah.
Well,
it was an...
This is why you think there's a thing called... I remember it. Give me a second. It's called... I've learned to do one new thing. I've learned to use mind maps. It's called pipeline halts. You can halt the pipeline from executing if it gets a bad artifact or it gets a bad Git commit. So one of the things you can do, you can flag a specific commit, and that code that's broken by somebody just gets completely ignored by the pipeline.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Kurosaki is
no. Yeah, nice. Good news then is that I saw something that had the words EKS and FedRAMP in them in releases this week. What was that? That was actually something.
There was some FedRAMP thing, but it wasn't for EKS.
I saw it. Hold on.
Oh, OSPFISA removed a core VPN router accidentally. Does that count? Yeah. If you cause an outage, it counts. I have a friend who EKS is FedRAMP moderate compliant now. So I have a friend who used to work for a U.S. government agency. I'm not sure which one. He shares this story, so he knows about it. He told me about it. He told people online about it. He told it on stream as well. He once took down, I think, 1/3 of the U.S. network because of some patch or something like that. So yeah, it's you can do those things, right?
My God. This is still, let me just quickly share the screen. This is still some of the things that with the share screen that made me smile the most, when you see people with this level of skill and dedication, when you combine the two. And access. It is a person who manipulated BGP records to send traffic, and this is what the actual dashboard then looked like between the different routers. Yeah.
Oh man.
Which is that's special.
That's dedication. That's dedication.
And awesome scripting.
Absolutely. Rastafari, one time, 15 years ago, some engineer at Cisco made a typo and started announcing our IP address prefix. Took a few hours for him to fix it. Oh man, any errors when it comes to networks because of the latencies and the delays is always so frustrating for me because like, unlike a simple local software fix, when you try to fix a network, you try it and you just wait to see if it works.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like, okay, it's good now, and you didn't know. So yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's very important.
yeah, it's apparently it was I can't remember what the brand was, but there was some company that brought out a new version of one of the switches. And what was happening is they were getting a massive amount of feedback from the field saying, listen, every single time we rack this and we start using it, the config is in reset and we don't know what the hell's going on. And then they found out something peculiar. So, network jack. So, you know the little plastic top pot that you have to press down to actually press it and be able to pull it out once it's been clipped in? Right. Now, some of them don't have the plastic sleeve over them. Some of them have like a square or a rectangular over it and then a little bit at the top that sticks out. So you've got this, or if you look at it from the side like that, but sticking out like that. And what happened is they designed a switch where the reset button is an actual physical button that you can press right above one of the network ports. And then what happened is as people were pushing it in, there was just enough play for them to hit the reset button for the config on the router or the switch or something, yeah.
Yeah, those are some of the design decisions that people are like, why is this button here?
Yeah.
This should be much more harder to reset that router configuration than that. Boy, no. Well, I mean, I did once do a big old company-wide, it's a single building company, so it wasn't too massive, but a single company-wide network restructuring from like a flat /16 subnet to like multiple VLANs and multiple, trying to make things proper. And like, mind you, I've never worked with Cisco before. Like I don't know what I used to work in companies where people would handle network and I would be the sysadmin. And then I had to learn a bit of Cisco. I had a colleague who was much older and he was more experienced with it. But at one point, like 3 a.m. in the morning, we're like not even halfway through, and Cobus left. Okay, he had a phone call. So halfway through, we were like, didn't even finish half of the migrations, but things were not working. Like there was no connectivity between different floors and whatnot. And we were at this point like, okay, we have half an hour to fix this. If we don't, we have to roll back because people in the morning will not be able to start working. So we were really close to this point of no return, and luckily, it was okay at the end, and we were able to kind of move forward and not break things, right? Yeah, exactly. I also say you need to. I would agree that all those things, that resetting network devices, resetting configurations on network devices, need to have at least 15 seconds of hold or something like that, or have a very complex system of doing it, like being able to reset a network switch by just holding a button for a little time is too dangerous in my book. So yeah. But yeah, I have never caused too big of a problem, but I know people who have caused problems, who have like broken things massively. And usually when you break things at that scale, it's more of a thing. Let's not blame anybody, right? Let's try to see how can we avoid this to happening. And this is the Amazon. One of the Amazon things I learned when I moved here is the number one, the 5 whys, and something called the COE, or correction of errors, or cause of errors, or so. Do you know about those things, Cobus? Care to explain?
Yep. So the idea with the 5 whys is so you can dig down to actually understand what went wrong. And that answer may never be a person did something wrong. It's more like it has to be along we didn't realize you could do this config with our system, or the system allows you to do X, Y, Z. There are a couple of things because at the end of the day, you don't want it, if you're relying on humans not to do specific actions, then you're not going to have a great day. And the second part is the COE, is the correction of errors, is that what did you do to fix this? How are we going to prevent this from happening in the future? And the answer there is almost never, let's put a policy in place, because that's the very, what we call day 2 thinking. Because the thing is, if you keep on putting policies, then you get to the point where you just go checkboxing on paper, and it just wastes time and boring. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm just looking at the thing here from Volstar about 200,000 lines of code in COBOL. They should create user-defined documents. 6 years, still working on it. I mean, COBOL developers are really highly paid now because there's so many mainframes that still run COBOL. It's ridiculous. But I must share. I forgot this. Like this kind of brought me right now to my worst. I would still to this day argue that this is the worstly designed software I've ever worked with. So I'm not going to say which company it was. Well, it was a government thing, what I worked at. And they had this thing that would contain a lot of the records of some things. It was like a massive program that would run massive amounts of records run, and I think it's using DB2 for a database. Now, I use the term database very loosely here because it's not a database engine, it's a file. And it's being accessed by 50 people at the same time. So imagine 50 people open up this application at the same time, which is just an executable file on a share. And they open it, log in with their own username, whatever, and they write things to the database. This works to an extent. The problem is if it breaks, everybody has to close the application. So I had to call everybody, could you please close the application? Or I would just tell them, turn off the computer. Like that was my easiest way to do it. And then you have to fix the things in the database. So the developers actually gave us a little tool that will kind of fix the problem. I don't know what it did. It did something to the database. But that's not even the worst thing. There's a worse thing. So in databases, when you put things in a table, you have an index, and then you do the things. They had no index. It was a table without an index. I'm not sure how that works. And the problem was the index, they used the index, was the count of the row. So what happens if you delete a row? You shift things up, and then the search no longer works. So what happened here that if you have to manually edit the database, which you had to do, you cannot delete a row. You have to put zeros in the row. So you have like this thousands of elements in a row. Like even if you were from the program, if you would delete a specific entry, it wouldn't delete the row. It would just zero it out. And it was a complete mess. Like I still couldn't believe, and that was in 2010.
Yeah, but see, that's so close yet so far away from, because deleting records from a table is not necessarily a good idea, especially on tables that are very busy. So there's a bit of truth saying, listen, rather zero it out to indicate or have a flag that says it's been deleted instead of deleting it. So there's that little bit of best practice that's now being completely convoluted. It's like,
yeah, exactly. But it's like it didn't, like there was no, like if you would have to, like, I don't know, if you access a specific row, it would the index was the count of that row. So like if I would search for a specific thing, it would index based on the count of that row, which is horrible. Yeah, it was in Serbia. So I mean, it was horrible. Like it was just man. Like I have never, like even when I was young then. What I was like 19 years old when I joined that company, and I came there like very junior. I was just a very junior sysadmin there, and I knew how to install Windows and manage a Windows-ish thing, and I've seen Linux. So when I saw that, I'm like, what is this? So yeah, it was one of the worst pieces of software I've ever seen. I think they changed it. I hope they did. But it was like I've spent most of my time there just fixing that software. By fixing, I mean running these executable files that they gave me. Like, oh, just run this. It's gonna fix your database. I don't know what it does, but it was no. And it was, I think, it was written in like Delphi or something like that. I mean, Delphi was a great language for its time, but DB2, IBM DB2 and Delphi, and it's like a single file. It's horrible. Oh wow. But yeah, we're almost to the end of this streaming session. That's 5 minutes to go. And I see somebody here asking for videos. Yes, the videos are going to be available on twitch.tv/AWS/videos. And also, it's going to be available there. Yeah. Not Cobus, not Darko, that YouTube channel, because we're streaming to that directly, and all the recordings of all the streams ever are available there. So if you want to have background noise of two bald people arguing about technology, feel free to go ahead and smash the subscribe
Darko, we're not
button.
arguing. Okay. It's just I don't want to agree with you because then we'd both be wrong.
Okay. That's a very nice way to say that, Kobus. Excellent. Yeah. So, this week, Kobus, what's happening this week for you?
Anything special? This week, I am also about to hop on a recording after this session for an upcoming series that we're doing called Let's Build. I don't know if the mails have gone out yet, but basically what it is it's aimed at us starting off with a very basic, I don't want to spoil the premise because it's actually quite a fun one, is building an app and then taking through the different stages of it. Like, for example, it does its basic thing, then all of a sudden it gets a lot of traffic and falls over. So my specific episode is taking this Elastic Beanstalk app, throwing load at it. And in my case, I just used JMeter, and I said, well, we're going to have, I think, 5,000 users, each do 50 or 500,000 calls to it, and then watch it fall over in real time. And then while that load is going, how do I go about getting it back up again by scaling it and changing the instance types and a couple of those things? So I've done the actual console recording of all the obviously steps. I need to clean that up and do that. That's coming this week. You and I both have to build out some webinars, I believe. I must just check the date. I think they're due next week. I just need to double check. Yes, I also got a fright because remember, next week is November. November means we've got webinars. So I might have some bad news for you, Darko. We might need to really build some more talks for next week.
I have no. I'm actually I have no talks upcoming for until reInvent. So maybe this is.
Oh yeah, don't worry.
So please do let me know. But next week, I have nothing in my calendar. I have nothing in my calendar. So that could be one of the things. But let me know. I would be happy to do more things because I would love to record more.
No, Doc, you've already agreed to them. Your name is on the talk.
Is it?
Okay. Yep. Good news. It's actually the week of the 9th of November only. So we've got a bit of room to do. But yes, you said yes. Your name's on it. Don't let me down.
So do join me for my talk on insert title here, which is going to cover the topics of topic A, topic B, topic C. I don't really know, but I'm sure Kobus will let me know. Kobus will let me know what my topic is about, and I will do it justice, Kobus. I promise.
Observability best practices. Enhancing and extending your application with AWS CDK or SDK.
I remember. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember now. Okay, I remember when I agreed to that. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Good news though. Although there's one other one. Build your first serverless app using the AWS CDK. Dun, dun, dun.
So if you want to learn about observability and how to build serverless applications with AWS CDK, do join the webinars coming up on the week of the 9th of November. I'm sure there's going to be a link somewhere at some point.
Follow
us on this. We don't have it yet, no. Follow us on the social medias and we'll share that information with you as well. Before we leave, I want to show you something. Yes, where is my thing? Where is this thing? Open it up like that. I want to show you this. Like so. Oh. Give me a second.
Dun, dun, dun. Is this your new ThinkPad?
No.
Or another new ThinkPad, rather?
I want to show you how I deploy my code. I made this thing.
Oh.
This is how you deploy from dev to prod. Isn't that right? Right, we all do it this way.
Since we've got a minute and a half left, Darko, I can top this.
Go ahead.
With an actual story.
Okay, go ahead.
So I walked into a company at one point, and it was a system that was written in C#, and deployment consisted of the following: remote desktop to production.
Okay.
Open up SVN, because it was SVN, not Git.
Okay.
Check out the branch that had the feature on that you wanted to do.
Okay.
Cherry pick merge from that branch into the last branch that was deployed, because there were multiple different production branches depending what you're dealing with. Manually resolve conflicts on this production machine with Visual Studio.
Okay.
Save, compile, click publish.
My God.
That was the process when I walked into the company.
Oh my god. We should have kicked this discussion off with that, man. That's how you deploy code. Okay. Next time we're going to talk about code deployments then. We're going to discuss more fine details about how to deploy code. And yeah. By the way, if you all have any ideas or any topics you would like us to cover, because number one, we don't know all the topics. Number two, we need to, we usually kind of think of these things a day before or 2 days before. So do let us know, either via social media or whatever. Let us know what you would like to be covered. And if enough of you just kind of reach out to us and tell us, hey, or the email. Can you talk about this? We're going to do our best to talk about that. So, we don't position ourselves as experts in all the things, right? On these things we talk about, we have experience, we can talk about what happened, but some things that we're not experts on, like for example, last week we talked about machine learning. We can touch some things in the machine learning and have a discussion with you folks here. So if you came here for expert talks, you're in the wrong place, but okay. With that bombshell, thank you all. Thank you everybody. Thank you, Kovis. And
see you later this week.
And to everybody else, have a lovely rest of the week.